अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः. Nityanandam. This is Sarvaishwaryananda. In this episode, Swamiji talks about taking total responsibility for everything that has happened, is happening, and is about to happen in our lives. So it's a very radical shift in diagnosing the problem of why I'm stuck in some areas of my life. And if I want to change something, I have to assume complete responsibility, even for apparently things that are outside of my immediate control, because it comes from the truth that responsibility is power, and its responsibility is not some kind of a burden. So enjoy this episode, and Nityanandam. This is Sarvaishwaryananda. Thank you.
Okay, let's unpack this. We've been given this this really powerful and, to be honest, challenging set of source materials. They're focused very intensely on personal mastery and, creating the life you genuinely want.
And they really force you to confront the way life has sort of occurred to you. It's a radical view.
It is. It's even uncomfortable, I think.
Oh, it's definitely uncomfortable. It demands a level of, immediate, total responsibility that I think most of us have spent a lifetime building systems to avoid.
Right. So for our deep dive today, we're really focusing on that core argument the sources make.
Which is that the primary obstacle to change, it isn't the problem itself. It's how we diagnose it, fundamentally how.
And the core thesis here is, it's brutal in its clarity.
It is.
If you want genuine freedom, if you want the ability to actually engineer your reality, you have to take responsibility for everything.
For everything happening right now, regardless of the past.
And the way forward isn't about adjusting or coping. The source is very clear. It demands we conquer.
And what's so fascinating is this insistence that the traditional search, for the real reason behind things.
The why.
Yeah, that deep dive into the why is often completely counterproductive. The source just says, flat out, stop trying to find the real reason.
Which flies directly in the face of, most conventional therapy, most self-help. That whole world celebrates root cause analysis.
It does.
So why is finding the real reason such a trap, according to this philosophy?
Well, it's because when you go looking for that reason, you usually hit one of two major pitfalls.
Okay.
First, the reason you find often leads you to believe the problem is external or it's systemic, which just makes it feel completely unsolvable.
Okay, it's not my fault, so I can't fix it.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the second, which is maybe even more common, is that you're just looking for consolation. You're not actually looking for a way to execute a solution.
It's like the illusion of understanding. The source has this great line. It says, if you've analyzed a problem forever, but you still don't know how to make the solution into reality, then you don't actually know the solution.
You don't. You just have a very complex intellectual map of the problem.
Which serves as a dead end.
Precisely. It lets you feel smart and engaged without ever having to actually, act or change.
So let's move into that first big idea, though.
Yeah.
This trap of justification and consolation. The source describes this kind of diagnosis, focusing on the past as the cause, with some really strong language.
It does.
Like delusional and even suicidal. Why is the language so strong?
Because from this perspective, it's a profound form of self-sabotage. It's sabotaging your future.
How so?
Well, wrong reasoning makes you feel totally powerless, stuck. When you shift the blame onto the past, your genetics, your parents, society, whatever it is, you're performing a kind of suicidal act against your own potential.
You're killing the possibility of your future.
You are, by justifying the limitations of your present.
Okay, that makes sense in a powerlessness context. But here's the claim that really made me stop. The idea that people sometimes actively enjoy their problem. That sounds incredibly harsh. How can anyone enjoy suffering?
It's not about enjoying the pain itself. It's about the utility, the usefulness of the infrastructure the problem creates.
The infrastructure?
Yeah. The problem creates a stable system that makes the person feel needed or useful or maybe even brilliant because they're the one managing this complex, chronic issue.
So their identity gets built around being the manager of their own failure.
Absolutely. If you take that problem away instantly, all the energy and identity invested in managing it just becomes redundant.
Like a chronic procrastinator. You're always stressed, but you get to be the busy person or the genius who works best under pressure.
Exactly. That persona gives you structure. It gives you an excuse. If you just cured the procrastination overnight, that whole infrastructure of excuses would just collapse.
I see the personal angle now. And this is why we fight radical change. Even when a solution is right there, the sources use this powerful example about transportation.
Yes, that there are, at least 600 more convenient transportation methods available that don't rely on roads and oil.
But nobody wants to popularize them.
Nobody. Because the massive investment, the emotional, the financial, the political power tied up in cars and oil, it would all instantly become useless. The source calls it the infrastructure turning into a swimming pool.
That's a great metaphor. A giant, pointless body of water.
And that exact same inertia, that same emotional cost, exists in our personal lives. You see it at work when people search for the why.
With things like anxiety or depression.
You go online, you look for the reason, and you find forums full of people suffering in the same way. And that shared diagnosis, it provides this intense consolation.
A sense of belonging. Justification.
But zero solution. You're just collecting reasons for your suffering instead of collecting tools for your freedom.
Right. If the reason for depression is, say, stress, you can act on that. But if you blame your first girlfriend or your parents not giving you spiritual counseling,
You're just looking for justification. You want sympathy, which makes the problem feel lighter, but it never, ever makes it go away.
so if the past is this dangerous place that breathes justification, our whole orientation has to shift.
It has to.
And this brings us to that paradigm shift. The sources demand the idea of conquering.
Yes. The critical step is that the diagnosis of your problem has to be done entirely from the context of a future possibility, not from the reality of the present or the chains of the past.
The source is so blunt about this, the past is just discarded trash.
Or X cards. Your history, your baggage, all the things you hold up as proof for why you're limited. The source says you should never expect inspiration from your history. You have to generate it internally.
Okay, so this is where I need to push a bit. This idea of total responsibility. If we just discard the past, what about external forces? Is the source saying that someone who is genuinely victimized, say, they get mugged, are they responsible for being mugged?
That's a crucial question. And the philosophy here is it's nuanced. It's not saying you are responsible for the cause of that external event.
Okay.
You're responsible for the result and your response. Responsibility here means the ability to respond. It's about creating the future you want, regardless of what happened.
So moving from why does this happen to me to
Now that this has happened, how will I respond to create the reality I want?
so it's responsibility as agency, not as blame.
Exactly. And that agency is what's meant by conquer.
Why that word? Why conquer? Why not just improve or cope?
Because conquering is totally different from winning or adjusting. We're taught that life is about winning.
Right, which is based on limited resources. If I win, you lose.
It's adversarial, finite. But conquering, in this philosophy, is based on the idea of unlimited resources. You're not fighting over what exists. You are engineering the desired reality from scratch, generating something new.
And you can only do that when you stop giving yourself sympathy and justification for being the way you are.
It forces that immediate accountability. I mean, the example of waking up early is so simple, but so perfect.
Yeah.
If you blame the alarm clock or your body, the source says you're taking comfort in giving up. You're enjoying your inability.
It sounds harsh, but it forces you to generate the solution, not just find the excuse. You have to engineer the whole routine, the mindset.
You have to make it the reality you want.
So if the goal is engineering reality, you need a really powerful internal engine for that. And that brings us to the final piece, the attitude of ferociousness. And the source is very, very careful to contrast ferociousness with anger.
A vital distinction. Anger is backward-looking. It's about resentment, injustice, who's to blame for the past. So anger ultimately leads to powerlessness.
The ferocious.
Ferociousness is a relentless, forward-looking attitude. It's the spirit you need to look at your current life, no matter how messy it is, with a spirit of conquering.
So it's a focused intensity aimed at creation, not destruction. Let's apply this. Let's take the why of, say, chronically failing relationships.
Okay.
How does a ferocious diagnosis approach that why?
Well, the non-ferocious justification trap diagnosis says, my partner is insensitive, or my childhood trauma means I'm doomed to pick the wrong people.
Right, the consolation trap.
Exactly. That why leads straight to self-pity. But the ferocious diagnosis starts from the end result. I demand a functional, passionate relationship.
Okay.
Now, when you look at the why things are collapsing, you're only looking at it from the angle of solving it for the future.
Yep.
You ask, how is my current response creating this result? How do I engineer a new reality where this outcome is impossible?
It just completely flips that how versus why loop.
Totally. Approaching the why for justification just leads to blame.
But approaching the how can I take responsibility? How can I generate this new reality? That's the only path forward.
The source is crystal clear on this. If your diagnostic why only gives you more reasons for suffering, you will never ever manifest the reality you want. The why has to be a tool to get to the how.
This has been a really powerful and challenging deep dive. We've analyzed this core insight that the biggest block to your goals is often your own detailed diagnosis of why you haven't achieved them yet.
Because that diagnosis just leads to justification, to stagnation.
So the synthesis is, it's simple in theory, but hard in practice.
Very hard. Stop asking why, which blames the past, and start asking how, which creates the future. It's about that ferocious attitude of conquering, diagnosing from a future possibility, and accepting total responsibility for your present results.
And we have to end with a final thought for you to chew on. The source suggests people keep their problems because the infrastructure around them is very useful.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about that investment turning into a swimming pool. Yeah. So, based on what you know now, what is the most comfortable structure, or maybe the most useful lie, surrounding a recurring problem in your own life that you need to be ferocious enough to dismantle? What infrastructure is standing between you and the reality you claim to want?
Food for thought. We will see you next time on The Deep Dive.